Yo, what is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B, and welcome to Tacos and Touchdown Live on a Wednesday. We usually do the show on Thursday, but it's Cowboys versus Titans tomorrow on Amazon Prime and any other channel you check it out. And I got my guy Walker Bailey, a fellow Off the Ball Network brother. How you doing, bro?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm gonna put on a brave face and watch that game tomorrow night. But other than that, life's good. No complaints. Can't complain.
Yes, sir. So it's like the end is almost the end of the year, and I wanted to hear what was like your most memorable moment of 2022, like in the podcast world.
God, in the podcast world, probably starting Field Stormers with Mo. We've had a ton of success with that, and we've both had a ton of fun with that. For anyone listening who's not familiar, that's our Off the Ball Network college football podcast. Where we record pretty much every week, around every Wednesday. And we've had a ton of success with it and had a ton of fun with it. And so that's definitely probably from a podcast standpoint, my most memorable moment.
Okay, yeah, I actually got to catch a couple episodes. Y'all do a really good job on there, and so y'all definitely go check out that for sure. We'll definitely talk more about that at the end of of the,
Absolutely.
of the episode. But my next question is, who is your top five Tennessee Titans of all time?
God, of all time. It's funny because towards the bottom of the list, I don't think he's at the top yet, but Derrick Henry's getting to a place where he's gonna eventually crack this list. Um, but guys like Eddie George, Steve McNair,
Those are some good ones.
yeah, there's a couple more there that I'm definitely forgetting someone obvious. Um, Chris Johnson's up
I was
there.
about to play that one.
CJ2K is I'll tell you the story. CJ2K is the reason I became a fan of the Titans. I grew up in an era where he was kind of like the face of that franchise, and I just couldn't get over watching him play football. He's the reason I really wasn't an NFL guy, and then I started watching um Chris Johnson, and that was my guy. Um, and then guys Warren Moon and Earl Campbell are obvious ones, but technically they were Houston Oilers. So that's kind of like the weird area of this franchise is with with it being a team that kind of transitioned from one city to another and one brand to another. You have some where you're like, oh yeah, you would love to be like, oh yeah, Earl Campbell's an easy one, but for me, Earl Campbell was never a Tennessee Titan. Yes, he technically played for the franchise, but he played for the Houston Oilers, which almost makes you associate him with Houston. Um, but yeah, I mean, we got a bunch of good ones out there, I think, and I think Derrick Henry's getting close to that list. Eventually, I mean, he ran for 2,000 yards. Derek Mason's another one. He was a little bit before my time, but he was one that's really fondly remembered by the fan base. Um, I'm trying to think of anyone else. Yeah, I got Eddie George already. Um, Keith Bullock was another one. Played for a decade there.
Yes.
That played, I think it was 01 to 2011 or something like that. But he was another big one that everyone, yeah. But for me, when I associated it, it's probably Bullock, McNair, George. If you're counting Oilers, then Campbell. Uh, and then Derrick Henry's kind of probably getting up there at some point, but Chris Johnson's still ahead of him for now.
Yeah, those are some good ones. When you almost think about when it comes to the Tennessee Titans or slash Oilers, you always think about their running back, or you think about some of the quarterbacks they had in the past.
Yeah, the running back room has always been good, and then I feel like defensive line and linebacker, I feel like they've always been a really physical defense. Really they're always really physically imposing, even when they're not good.
That is very true because you think of Albert Hainsworth in his prime when he was there. I'm trying to think of some other
I
defensive
mean,
line.
even now to a lesser extent, Jeffrey Simmons is
That's
elite.
another one.
Yeah, I mean Jarrell Casey the last few years, they've had guys for the last just as long as I can think that where they've had dudes on that defensive line and dudes just in that linebacker room.
And you got I almost forgot Javon Curse.
Oh yeah, again, that fits
Yeah,
even what we were just talking about, like that defensive line room. Just always have a dude in there.
absolutely. So my next question is, we know Ron Tannehill's tenure is basically about done in Tennessee. Do you think Malik Willis is the future QB1 of the Tennessee Titans?
Can I like? I'm gonna like cop out here and be like, I don't really know yet. Like, I
I get
certainly
you.
hope so. Like, I'm cheering for him. Like, that's who I want it to be. Um, but with that being said, like he's got the worst left tackle in the history of football playing on his blind side right now, and then he's got probably the worst receiver room in football playing around him. Um, he's got a defense that doesn't like to make timely stops. So when you factor all those things in, it's kind of like, well, it's just too early to tell.
I get
I think a lot of the tools are there, and I think like he has a lot of the tools he needs to be successful. But I also think that there's things there where you're like, wow, like Malik hasn't in all of his starts now combined hasn't reached 100 yards yet. So like you're like at some point like he has to complete passes throwing the football, and I think he still needs a lot of work reading defenses. Like I think a lot of stuff right now it's just one read and throw it regardless of whether or not it's open. And I think that's why we got beat last week because Malik threw that slant without even like looking at the defense, and there was a corner sitting right in that area, like right on that route. Um, so like I think it's still an incomplete grade and it's to be determined. Like I'm certainly pulling for him. I think he, from the leadership standpoint of how to run an NFL franchise as a quarterback, needs some work. He's a really positive, upbeat character, but it almost comes across at times, and it certainly did this past week, like he doesn't care whether they win or lose. And when that's the case, a lot of times it's hard for guys to, go into battle with you. Like Ryan Tannehill needed therapy after they lost to the Bengals in the playoffs last year. Like he essentially was distraught over losing that playoff game. And so I think Malik, I'm not saying that that's necessary. I'm just saying I think like we need to see Malik get more pissed off and care more. Like you can't come out and just be like, I'm just as I think the exact quote from last week was, I'm just as happy, after a loss as I would have been after a win. Because one, like that's bullshit. Two, it's just not a good message to send in the locker room. So I think he needs work in that regard, along with some of the on-field stuff. But I think he has all the tools he needs to be successful.
Yeah, you definitely got to show passion like after a big loss. If you're just kind of like going through the motions,
Yeah,
that energy just goes back into your whole team. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess if you don't care, I don't care. So we'll just do go
right.
through emotions.
It's exactly no. I mean, right, and that's how you end up with, that's how you end up slipping back into like the 2014 type Titans, where you end up like 2-14 because nobody cares, and so they really like. I think he needs to be more demanding as a leader. Um, if he wants to be the guy, and I don't know whether or not they'll bring Tannehill back next year or not, but if they don't and it's his team, like he has to take control of the team. Like he has to take control of the team.
Because he's basically
As
the yeah.
QB one of an AFC South franchise or whatever, like you have to take ownership and you have to step up and be the guy. Like you can't do this wishy washy like I'm happy all the time stuff. Like you've got to step up, be a leader. Like you would never hear Patrick Mahomes come out and be like, I'm just as happy after a loss as I am after a win when it potentially cost you a division title. Like that's not something that your guys are going to want to listen to.
Yeah, because when you look at some of the great quarterbacks, they're not afraid to show how they feel on the sidelines, and it may ruffle some of their teammates' feathers, but they get over it, and then you just show that you care about it. Well, hey, we need to get back in this game. You can't just be like, oh, it's just another day in the office type of deal.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and that's where he needs growth, but he's a rookie. He's only started 5 games. I'm not going to just hammer the guy for not being there yet with that aspect because a lot of other rookie quarterbacks wouldn't be either. I mean, we've seen in New York, Zach Wilson's had multiple seasons now and still hasn't found a way to figure that out. So, um, I'm really pulling for him. I really want him to be the guy. I think he's a great person. Like I think he's a great guy to have in the locker room. So I hope that he can kind of take over and just put a stranglehold on the job and not really give the team a choice, but to give him the job and roll with him.
Absolutely. So we kind of got into the detail when it comes to the Titans. They're kind of missing a lot of pieces that could help a quarterback, and maybe y'all could add some to the defense as well. Y'all have really good run defense, but let's say if the draft was tomorrow with the 13 overall pick, what would the Tennessee Titans draft? If you were to
So it'd be one of two positions. It would either be a wide receiver or an offensive tackle. I think a lot of that just is going to be determined by who's available and when. And I think it's really early to get into like just prospect specifics. I know PFF had Quentin Johnston, the wide receiver out of TCU, mocked to them today, which is a TCU guy. Like that'd be pretty cool. Um, so, I think that's a possibility. Jackson Smith and Jigba out of Ohio State's been one that's been linked to them a lot. And I'm not super familiar yet with the offensive tackle class, but I think that that's something they're going to be looking for too. Because Taylor Lewan's getting really, really expensive on the back end of his deal, and he's torn ACLs back-to-back seasons now. So I think he's probably a likely cut candidate for the Titans. And if they're going to do that, then they have to find a replacement as far as offensive tackle goes. So they've got options and they've got decisions to make. But I think that those are the two likely outcomes.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I'm not familiar on the offensive tackle class either, but I could definitely see y'all going with that. And Taylor Wan, I think you may be looking at him. He may retire or may go to another team. But like you said,
He said on NFL Network he was going to keep playing regardless. So I would
okay,
imagine he's going to try to sign on with another team, whether it's as a swing tackle or whether it's as a maybe he flips sides and goes to the right side. I don't know. Um, I'm not sure what the route will be for him, but and maybe the team brings him back on a cheaper deal. I really have no idea, but yeah, I think that that's probably the most two likely outcomes for the draft for the Titans.
yeah. Okay. So we can get a little bit into the game tomorrow. So what are some key matchups or that are you looking in this game against the Cowboys and the Titans?
Uh, I mean, like Dallas is going to dominate on the defensive front, and I think if they do that, then really the game shouldn't be really problematic for them at all. Um, Dennis Daly's been atrocious, and he's going to try to block Micah Parsons tomorrow night, which could result in some federal crimes. So I think that that's the most important thing is like if Dallas will get pressure and just abuse what's been a horrible Titans offensive line. No Derrick Henry, so like it's going to be Hassan Haskins, so you don't even really have to like gear up and be like, all right, we have to stop Derrick Henry. Like the guy that's going to be starting at running back is a rookie that has never had really more than like five carries in a game. So I think that the biggest thing is they need to contain Malik Willis within the confines of the pocket and then just tee off on that porous Titans offensive line.
Yeah, I because I was hearing that he wasn't gonna play, and I was like, okay, maybe he's gonna possibly play since.
They listed him as doubtful today, which to me says he's not going to play. Like, I mean, that just says, like, yeah, like if he's doubtful and they're even considering the idea of him not playing, then that means he's not going to play. If he was going to play, he would have had no injury designation. Just my opinion, though.
Okay. Okay. Alex Barros is going to the game tomorrow. So, okay. Yes, sir. So,
I can't imagine as a Titans fan spending money to watch this team right now. Like it'll probably be like, and that's the other thing too is like home field advantage probably won't be a thing. Like it'll probably be more Cowboys fans than Titans fans. The fans,
it's kind of weird.
the fans are
It's
so
kind of
pissed
weird.
the fans are so pissed at the team they probably won't go to the game.
Yeah, I'm not starting to notice that when the Cowboys go to other teams, you'll see more Cowboy fans there. Unless it was like the 2020 season, it was like nobody really trying to go that year.
Right.
But my question is, who do you see as the AFC South champion at the end of the year between you and the Jags.
Maybe this is me just falling on my sword and dying on the hill, but it's still the Titans for me. Like I think that when you give this team extra time to prepare and you give this team essentially and like it's going to basically factor in a way as a bye week for the Titans because they're going to rest all their key contributors and they're going to watch the game at home on their couches with their wives. Um, and I think when you factor that in, then you also factor in that the Titans, and this is not a knock on Doug Peterson, it's just the respect I have for Mike Vrabel. They probably have a coaching advantage from a game plan standpoint. And also because of how the game went last time in Nashville, like it's really the Titans who have to make the adjustments and find a way to adjust to what Jacksonville did that had success against them. So I think that when you give Mike Vrabel a second chance off of extended rest, where Jacksonville is going to have to play on a normal week, I think when you give the Titans that extra time, you give that coaching staff the extra time, you give those key contributors a week off. I just think that they're a little bit healthier and more ready to go than Jacksonville for that game. And then also you just add the gravity of the moment for like a young quarterback, for a head coach that's really trying to put his fingerprints all over that franchise. I think that gravity of that moment may be too big for Jacksonville at this point in time. And I think that they've got a really bright future. There's a ton of talent on that team, but I just think the moment gets too big and Vrabel and them just kind of go in and find a way to physicality their way to a win with a lot of Derrick Henry and a lot of short stuff to receivers and tight ends.
Yeah, because when you look at the Titans, they have a lot of injuries and kind of just that like we're playing on the Thursday, y'all got more time, like you're saying. It's kind of like a little short bye week, and you're looking at the Jags. They're this red hot team, but they're still young and they haven't been in the
People forget
playoffs.
that Jacksonville, before this little 3-game win streak, though, had lost 7 out of 9 games. Like,
Yeah,
people forget that. Like, people forget that this team is not actually all that good. Like, they got hot for 3 weeks, and Trevor Lawrence has started to look like a not generational, but he started to look like a franchise quarterback. And, like, that's great. Like, that's something to build on. But this team has gotten handled with relative ease by pretty much everybody that has a pulse. So I think that people are really, really high on the Jacksonville thing right now, and that's cool. They're really fun. They're a great story. They're divisional rivals. Just screw them. But I just think that we've probably overrated them a little bit. Don't be surprised if they lose to the Texans on Sunday. I just think that, and honestly, like as a Titans fan, like I'm pulling for the Jags to win on Sunday just because that team is like so full of themselves right now. Like they're so, and I just don't think young teams know how to handle that type of stuff. So I just think the Titans are more prepared to win that type of game. They've been there before. They have that experience. They're going to have the rest advantage with an elite head coach who thrives off of rest advantage. Like I think that the Titans have lost like under Vrabel, they've lost no games off of bye weeks and off of extended rest. They have like an incredible record, which includes Thursday night games. So I think that I'll take the Titans.
okay, I could definitely see that. And when you like you're saying, the Jags are they're just a super young team, and I think having a coach that's been in the playoffs with Mike Vrabel, I think he'll have them well prepared compared to the Jags, where they're just like, oh, we didn't beat the Cowboys, we didn't beat these other teams, but it's just
Well, and then like Doug Peterson's won a Super Bowl, and so like he's a great head coach. But the thing with them is like, how do you adjust? How do you adjust and like find ways to you know almost get better from a game that you won like 33-17 or something like that. Like what do you like? How is a Jaguars fan or a Jaguars coach like? How do you change that? How do you adjust? And so, I think the Titans are going to get the chance to throw the first initial punch. And I think in a game of that magnitude, if they throw the first punch, I think that you may see the Jags kind of struggle with some of that adversity.
definitely see
I mean, you
that.
saw it last year. Like, I mean, I'll use this as a reference point. You saw it last year with the Chargers. Like a quarterback who's really never played in a game of that magnitude And they didn't struggle per se, but they ended up losing to the game to a team that's kind of been around the block. They've handled more of those big games. They've been in more of those moments, and the Raiders just found a way to win that game, at the end there. So I think that you could be looking at something similar. Now, granted, it's not going to be 35-32. It's probably going to be like more like 3-2, but I think that it's a similar type moment.
Yeah, because when it comes to those type of games, there's always a lot of time based on experience. If you haven't been there, you're just like, oh, we're too hyped. But you have if you kind of like how the Bengals were last year, where you're just like, we're gonna get adjusted either way. But if you're a team like, oh, we didn't made it and everything, you can't. You gotta have to have like a balance when it comes to those type of
Exactly.
games.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, lastly, what would be some keys to victory for the Titans to you have a possible chance against the Cowboys? And I got to you.
An act of God. Um, I mean, legitimately, the path is like you find a way to somewhat pass protect and then be explosive on offense. And then defensively, you find a way to force some turnovers and kind of cause some havoc with that Dallas offense, where you can potentially score on some short fields. But like you can kind of just hear in my voice how I'm really having to like get creative with ways in order for them to find ways to win that game. Like, but I mean, that's honestly what it is. Like, you have to create some turnovers, like, and you can't be like +1 in the turnover margin. You have to be like +4. Like, you have to find a way to like substantially win the turnover battle. You have to do enough on the line of scrimmage where you can create some sustainable offense. In practice this week, you have to create a really good script for Malik and Hassan's first drive, where you can find a way to march down and maybe get an early touchdown, where they can kind of build some confidence. Because if you get shut down out of the gate and you have rookies running the show, because I mean, like, when you really put this in perspective, it's going to be a rookie QB1 handing it off to a rookie running back one and throwing to a wide receiver one who is currently a rookie. And then also your starting right tackle is a rookie, and he's also going to be throwing to a tight end who is a rookie. Like, they're literally going to primarily be made up of rookies on Thursday night, and so you have to build those kids' confidence. And if you can build rookies' confidence, well, they're silly and don't know any better in this league. Like, they'll mess around, build some confidence, and go and do the damn thing. But if you don't get off to a quick start, then it's going to be curtains early. That's why I think too, if you win the coin toss for the Titans, just go ahead and take the ball. Just go ahead and take the ball. Like, go ahead, take the ball. Be like, you know what? We're either going to make a statement right here, or you're going to kick our teeth in, and we're going to lose.
Absolutely. When it comes to the Cowboy side, I think is what the main thing is, don't get too. Usually when we have a big win or something like that, we kind of just like we get too relaxed. You're like, oh, they're hurt. They don't have Derrick Henry. That's what I'm worried about. Is like when I remember when they played against the Jags, and they're like, oh, they're the Jaguars, and then we end up losing. And I don't want to be like, okay, we're playing against a bunch of rookies. They're not going to be prepared, but it could be another story where they're prepared and they want to, um, uh, like you're saying, they're made they feel like we could beat this team, but you got to come in there and follow your plan. It's like you seen T.Y. Hilton make a big play in the deep threat. We haven't had a deep threat receiver in a minute, but I think when it comes to Pollard, we got to use him as a receiver this year. This week instead of like the running back. He's coming off an injury, but I think this using does getting ready for the playoffs against teams that have mobile quarterbacks. And you're playing against a mobile quarterback in Malik Willis. And we've been kind of having problems with mobile quarterbacks, but I think this is like a true testament playing against quarterbacks that are able to scramble, because we most of our wins have been against the pocket passer type of quarterbacks. But honestly, just stopping the run when it comes to the Titans is how we're going to beat the Tennessee Titans this week.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, like I said, I really think it's a simple game plan. Like, I think you have to go in and understand the assignment. I think you have to, although the Titans are a really good run defense, I think it's important that you just kind of control the clock. You want to keep the Titans defense on the field. Defensively, if you can get those 3 and outs and get that deep, like you really just want to wear that Titans defense down because that's really been the case the last few weeks. And if it stays close, then they'll give out in the fourth quarter. And if it doesn't stay close, well, then you probably scored every drive. So
it's basically going to be on time management and whose run games gonna who can controls the run, stops the run, and who can run the ball well.
that's exactly right. Yeah, and I mean, I think that, and like I said, like I mean, you don't like Dax had an interception problem this year. Like you really don't want to. You want to make sure that you don't continue to have that same issue. Like you don't want to turn the ball over 2 to 3 times against the Titans and give up a defensive touchdown or something silly like that. Like don't give them any easy outs as far as like make them generate everything on offense. Like make Malik Willis and uh, Hassan Haskins and Traylon Burks beat you.
Yeah, and then when it comes to like playing against those Malik Willis, you got to get guys like Deron Bland, like disguise some blitzes or something like that, or you have Michael Parsons in there as well. Just like
honestly, if I'm Dan Quinn, I think I'm lining up and like you really want to get in a lot of that short zone stuff and like let your pass rush get home, but like really try to disguise some like cover 2 type stuff where like Malik's gonna have to like come off of his first read. Because if Malik comes off his first read, then like it's big problems for the Titans and big problems for Malik Willis. Like and if he just throws his first read, you're probably gonna force a turnover or 2.
Yeah, and they also like to get Donovan Wilson involved when it comes to quarterbacks. I definitely could see him being involved in trying to stop Malik Willis with his legs. But,
yeah.
So that's basically all I have. But I wanted to get the floor to you to like do any promoting any shows y'all got going coming up and anything that you got going on.
Yeah, so it's at Walker Bailey 818 on Twitter. A lot of my projects are kind of impromptu. Like I did an impromptu show with Jim Root from Field of 68 and 3-Man Weave, kind of previewing SEC college basketball earlier this week. On a weekly basis, Mo Murphy and I do Field Stormers for the network. That's kind of our thing. It's kind of our baby. We're going to keep going kind of into the off season and try to maybe combine some college football stuff into some draft stuff and do stuff like that. And then just follow all the good people at offtheballnetwork.com. So much good content up. All your sports and entertainment needs at offtheballnetwork.com. And follow all the contributors on Twitter. There's just, so much good stuff coming out over there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely go check out Off the Ball Network for all the great content that everybody's got going on. And I appreciate you, Walker, for getting on the show. Can't wait for this game tomorrow. I hope you have a good one.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and I'm glad our teams are finally gonna take the gridiron at the same time. I kind of think when I imagined it, I wish it would have been in better circumstances, but sometimes it just is what it is.
Yeah, I honestly wanted to see how my team go against Derrick Henry. I was like, man, I want to see what they got going on.
Last time the two teams played, they played at Jerry World, and Jason Witten got his jersey retired, and the Titans absolutely punked them in Jerry World that night. I think the Titans won with Marcus Mariota at quarterback, won like 31-13 or something like that.
Yeah, don't remind me.
Kevin Byard went and did like the TO on the star.
I do remember that.
He did it multiple times because he had multiple picks in that game, and the second time the Cowboys tried to fight the entire Titans roster. So, I'll have to hold on to that one for a little while, or like 24 more hours before the Cowboys fans kind of get the one up on me for probably like the next 5 years.
Man, you just okay. They just need to replay that game and get ready for next.
I'm gonna go watch the highlights on YouTube tonight just so I can remind myself of what competence looks like.
Definitely understand that for sure. I'm probably gonna go watch it right now just to get a little hype for tomorrow.
Absolutely, man. You have to. I think the Titans even wore white jerseys, white pants that night with navy helmets. I think we wore our best uniforms that night.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check that out because we're wearing an Arctic white at y'all's tomorrow. So
Oh, is that the? Or does that mean they're gonna wear the white helmets too?
yeah, they're wearing white helmets.
Damn, that means they were gonna play really hard. Um, yeah, we're in trouble.
Yeah, they I don't know what's about the white helmets with them, but they just play at a different level. So definitely got to be watch out for that, sir. But this has been Tacos and Touchdown Live. Y'all have a good one. Peace.